What's up, you guys? Jalen Hawk here as always for weekly anime manga reviews, and I'm here with another video. So today we're going to be talking about Regeneration in Tokyo Ghoul. Not necessarily a video of me explaining it, because I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory, but more on the lines of, has Regeneration in TG gone too far? At least within the course of TG Re. Has it gone a bit too far where it's like, yeah, this is kind of unrealistic? Now, one thing I do want to say before I start this video is not necessarily on, like, this isn't me saying and like ranting off like, oh yeah, none of this stuff makes sense, blah blah blah. It's not that. It's just me talking about it and having like a general discussion. So I don't really want to create like a war in the comic section. Please, people, try to be civil. But besides that, in the most recent chapter of Tokyo Ghoul, we got, well, spoiler alert if you haven't read Tokyo Ghoul Re chapter 175, because this will contain spoilers for every single chapter up until this date. So spoiler alert. Now, in the most recent chapter of Tokyo Ghoul Re 125, or 175, I mean, you have where Eto Yoshimura is revealed to still be alive, which isn't really that surprising. It was cool to see, but it wasn't that shocking because, let's be real, a pretty big portion of the fandom had the idea that, okay, the body that, like, the body of the headless owl is most likely Eto. It was just more on the lines of whether or not she was still alive. I was more in the camp of, I don't know if she's still alive, because in TG, we've seen ghouls get their head knocked off, but it was like, if it got destroyed, a lot of times they would be dead. In this case, it looks like Eto's head was like straight up gone. So I was like, okay, I don't really think she's alive anymore, but that's definitely her body. But a lot of people did think that she was alive, so kudos to you guys who happened to guess that she was still kicking. Now, I'm just gonna kind of, well, okay, I'll save the whole entire, like, how the hell is she still alive thing for, like, the end of the video, because I don't really want to get into that right now, because that's kind of sidetracking, but, okay, so she was able to regenerate her head, like, straight up. Like, we see that her head, like, kind of, like, her neck kind of grows like a bulb, sort of, like, almost like a flower, and then her head just sprouts out from it, so she was able to regenerate her head. Now, I've gotten in some debates with people who agree with me and people who disagree with me when it comes to me saying that this doesn't make sense. So let me explain the difference between every other situation where a ghoul has had their head cut off in comparison to now. So in the case with Eto, it's not the same as any other ghoul who has gotten their head lopped off, like in the case of Roma, like in the case with Noro, or in the case of Kane. It's not the same. Every other situation with them has been drastically different. In the case with Eto, this is very, very different, because she flat out regenerated a head. No other character we have seen so far regenerated a head, at least from what I can remember. In the case of Noro and Kane, well, first off, we don't know what Noro is. The fact that she could be a walking sentient Kagune that came off of Eto has been a theory. I've even talked about it on my old channel. It's probably true, but we don't have 100% evidence for it. It's kind of like one of those, I feel like the Noro situation is one of those theories that have become so accepted by the fandom that people straight up think that it's true. Kind of like the same thing with Kaneki getting messed around with in certain areas by Jason. We don't know if that's true. There's evidence of it supporting it, and it probably is true, but there's no concrete proof that like, yeah, that did happen. Like, it wasn't said in the manga, it wasn't said by Ishida, wasn't said in any light novels. There's no like 100% confirmation of that happening. But it's one of those situations where people a lot of times believe it is, even though there is a lot of evidence supporting it, obviously. Noro's not we don't know what Noro is, but we know that Noro was capable of kind of like forming these tendrils type things, these Kagune tendrils, which reattached his head onto his body. I can't remember if his head got cleaned off, or like, because I remember the way how it went in both the anime and the manga, because both of these scenes are a little bit different for censorship reasons. I think in the anime, Yomo kicked Noro like straight up in half, and then in the manga, Yomo kicked off his head. Either that or it was vice versa. I can't remember, but either way, it was different in the anime and the manga from what I recall. It's been a while since I've seen both. But he formed like these tendrils and kind of just reattached himself, so he was able to kind of just heal it back. Same thing with Kane. Kane got her head kicked off by Heise, and tendrils formed on like her neck and just reattached her head, allowing her to kind of just regenerate. Okay, I already kind of don't really like that it went that far in TG to begin with, but within the confounds of like, I guess the story on how exactly regeneration has been shown, it does make sense because like Tokyo Ghoul, even though it is a fictional story, to a degree, it does still make, it's still in the world of like realism to a degree where it's kind of like, okay, yeah, some humans can survive some of those things that have happened, and you being able to regenerate something like that, since it's not necessarily like a life-risking thing, it's not that hard to believe. Like, for example, a ghoul getting their hand cut off, and then like regrowing their hand after a period of time, that's believable, because it's like, okay, well, yeah, if you don't cover up the wound, if you're a human being and you get your hand cut off, you're gonna bleed out and die. But like, if you're a ghoul, regrowing your hand, it's not really anything essential when it comes to being like, it's not like getting your hand cut off is not going to be fatal. It's not going to cause you to like instantly die, like getting pierced in the heart, shot in the head, getting your head smashed or something like that, or even getting like breaking your neck or something like that. So it's like, it's believable to a degree. And getting your head cut off in TG is already kind of like, well, if your head is removed from your body, your brain isn't able to send the signals throughout your body and kind of like keep your body to work. So the fact that we've seen certain ghouls, for example, get their head like removed from the rest of their body and still be able to talk, like in the case with, I believe, Noro, Roma, and also Donato. Those are like the three characters we've seen that with. It's kind of like, that doesn't really make sense, like especially with Donato and Roma, because it's like, it's straight up like your body's straight up gone. But in both cases, or at least in the case with Roma, Ure smashed her head in. Supposedly, quote unquote, Roma is dead. In the case with Eto, her head was like, we don't know what happened to her head, but if we're being honest, since it grew back, I'm assuming it got smashed. Like probably like Kaiko might have came in, cut off her head, freaking like stepped on it with his foot and like just destroyed the damn thing. And like it grew back. Now, within the standpoint of like realism, it doesn't make sense. Like, let's be real. Your brain, if your brain no longer exists, you shouldn't even be able to like send signals throughout your body to control the rest of your body. She should realistically be dead. But within the confines of Tokyo Ghoul, it does make sense. Because, I mean, Rize, for example, got crushed by steel beams. A normal person, if they get crushed by steel beams, would be dead. Kaneki getting stabbed in his head. Like, okay, the stabbing in the head, people have lived from getting stabbed in the head. Like, you can look it up. People have lived from that. People have even lived from getting shot in the head. Now, a lot of times they don't live for very long. And sometimes, if they do happen to fully recover, a lot of times short-term memory loss, or even like the way how their brain works doesn't work the same way how it used to. They're not 100% okay. Like, I'm gonna be honest when I say that. They're not gonna be 100% okay. But in the case with Kaneki got stabbed in the head. Obviously, he was knocked unconscious. He was messed up for a very long time, and eventually the wounds healed. And we even see, like, because of the suppressants that Heise Sasuke was under, and we see, like, the whole entire, like, CAT scan on his body, his brain still has, like, some messed up things with it. And even if you look at Kaneki now, it's like, you can still tell he's not, like, Kaneki's sane to a degree, but we still know that Kaneki, like, deep down is also still, like, very insane. Like, shit, he has a split personality disorder. That kind of says a lot. But yeah. Okay, so the only thing I can think of, going back to the Eto thing, and I've seen people say this, people have said it to me on Twitter. My friend Yaka also tried to say this, as well as my friend Sen in my Discord. That's possible that somehow Donato's Kagune was able to stop Eto from regenerating. I kind of agree a little bit more on the lines of like my friend Yaka's idea, where it's like not necessarily that was keeping her from regenerating, but more keeping her alive to a degree, so that they would be able to still manipulate her body and not use it kind of like a the whole entire weird process that they're doing now with like Koma and Arimi, the I think it was called like the Orgel process or something like that. Maybe the only thing I can think of, because we don't know the full-on thing with Orgel, it was like a brief explanation. We don't know if the people who utilize Orgel are stronger or weaker or even the same strength as they were when they were quote-unquote alive, right? It's possible that maybe they are weaker, kind of like the whole entire concept of like Edo Tensei and Naruto. Maybe you're weaker when you're brought back via that process. So maybe that's why they wanted to keep Eto alive, or maybe they're not able to access the full capabilities of their Kagune on the lines of like using their Kakuja. Whereas if you keep them alive and you're using like the whole entire stuff of like Itori sending signals with her Ukaku flute sound manipulation Kagune thing, and also Donato capable of kind of like manipulating her sort of like a puppet with his crosses, you're able to use the full-on capabilities of what Eto's capable of doing. Either that, or I kind of doubt Eto was working with the clowns. I kind of doubt that, but it almost seems like this might be a discussion maybe for like another day, whether or not Eto quote-unquote dying was part of the original plan. But it really does make me wonder, because Eto is taking the situation like 100% like serious, and she seems to be taking advantage of it as if it's going to plan. And from what it also looks like, because of how shocked Kaiko was when Eto's body started moving, he didn't see, it seems like that he wasn't aware that if the clowns were taken out of, taken out, which we know that V seems to be aware of, that Eto would be able to regain control of her body. So yeah, anyways, that's kind of just all of this video. It's more on a discussion, not really like explaining anything. I'm just talking about stuff. I'm just curious what you guys' thoughts down below. Do you guys think that Regeneration in Tokyo Ghoul has gone too far? Because I almost feel like at this point, right, because of the fact that Eto's capable of regenerating her head, it really does make me wonder, what's the limit to her regeneration? Because even Noro had a limit. Like, the Quinks were able to kind of exploit that weakness and burn him out eventually. Maybe Eto the same thing, but it really does make me wonder, characters like Eto, Kaneki, Furuta, and also like Rize, what's their limit to what they are capable of healing from? Like, there has to be a limit at some point, right? Like, that would make the most sense logically. Because if just getting rid of their head is not going to do anything, it makes me wonder, is like the only way you can deal with them is like Mortal Kombat style them, like jab your hand in their chest and like yank out their heart and like crush it or something, like something absurdly crazy. Like, it really does make me wonder. And we know that Kaneki's regen at this point in time is probably way better than Eto's is, I'd imagine, especially after the whole entire dragon stuff. So it really does make me wonder, like, how could you kill someone like that? So yeah, anyways, it's kind of all for this video. Thank you for watching. Remember to comment, subscribe as always, comment down below your thoughts, and Jalen Hawk as always, signing out.